me join you on this winter solstice celebration. In 3 days, our Christian brothers and sisters will celebrate the rising of the sun, though this season has been celebrated throughout antiquity for the exact same reason. Today is the annual death of the sun, with its rays of light symbolized by a crown of thorns. Today's the day it reaches its southernmost point in the sky, where it will spend 3 days there in its tomb. And in 3 days, on December 25th, the three brightest stars, or three kings of Orion's belt, will follow the star in the east to the new sun's rising. So, Hindu mystic Ramakrishna said that we must regard other schools of thought as many different paths leading to the same end, and for this reason we shouldn't be malicious towards anyone. And it was this mentality that originally got me into studying philosophy and comparative religion. And in my studies, I've come across one school of thought that makes its presence known in every discussion on spirit or metaphysics, in generally a malicious or insulting kind of way. What I like to call scientism. It's the worldview of people who say, I don't believe in God, I believe in science. It's a noble position, I admit, but without stepping on any egos, we're going to look at some science and see where it leads. If I happen to say something that's outside of your scope of interpretation, I just ask that you stick it out with me to the end to see if I don't clarify your objection along the way. This is a book of conversations between three controversial scientists called The Evolutionary Mind. In a chapter on skepticism, ethnobotanist Terence McKenna has this to say. I think one way to think about this problem is to give the school of thought a certain amount of time to advance their agenda, but if after 20, 30, 40 years they go nowhere, they should lose their place in the discourse or move to the back of the room. I think this should be applied to science as well. Well, the nature of quantum mechanics has been understood for around 80 years now, so scientists have had about that long to justify materialism. When I say scientists here, I mean people who believe in scientism, and when I say materialism, I mean philosophical materialism. In this encyclopedia of esoteric knowledge, 33rd degree Freemason Manly Hall summarizes scientism and materialism in this way. In the ranks of the so-called learned, there is rising up a new order of thinkers which may best be termed the school of worldly wise men. After arriving at the astounding conclusion that they are the intellectual salt of the earth, these gentlemen of letters have appointed themselves final judges of all knowledge, both human and divine. This group affirms all mystics must have been epileptic, and all the saints neurotic. It declares God to be a fabrication of primitive superstition, the universe to be intended for no particular purpose, immortality to be a figment of the imagination, and an outstanding individuality to be but a fortuitous combination of cells. And that's it. That's essentially all. The scientific establishment views the nature of reality as inherently material, with consciousness being at best an emergent property that's established itself in one place that we know of, the mind. Matter is unconscious, and we are conscious. And it kind of makes sense. Material objects definitely appear to be made of matter. They certainly look like they exist in one place in space and time, right? Well, when you study the foundations of quantum mechanics, you find that subatomic particles, atoms, and larger bits of matter actually exist as waves. If you think about a wave in like the ocean, or a sound wave, or just me waving to you right now, it takes time and space to wave in. Particles, or little bits of matter, represent physical realities, but waves represent potential realities. So instead of matter existing in one place, it exists in all of its potential future realities spread out in space and time. Once a conscious observer interacts with matter, the future possibilities collapse into one physical reality, then a new set of wave-like future possibilities opens up to the matter. I know that's strange and a bit confusing, but basically what this means is that nothing in the material world can happen or even exist unless it's in the presence of consciousness. Quantum events require conscious observation. And for those scientifically minded out there, we know it's consciousness causing collapse of the wave function due to the delayed choice quantum eraser experiment, and this principle is the entire basis for quantum cryptography. I have a couple of quotes here to hopefully make this easier to understand. Physicist Sir Rudolf Peierls said, "The quantum mechanical describes in terms of knowledge, and knowledge requires somebody who knows." Theoretical physicist John Wheeler said, "No phenomenon is a real phenomenon unless it is an observed phenomenon." And theoretical physicist Max Planck, the guy who came up with quantum theory and won the Nobel Prize for it, said, "All matter originates and exists by virtue of a force. We must assume behind this force the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind." Fun fact, Max Planck's son Edwin was involved in a plot to make Hitler explode with a bomb, not from anger. I have to move on, but the important thing to note is that quantum events require conscious observation in order to exist. And I hope you're with me so far, because here's where things get totally ridiculous. See, the universe is expanding, which means that it used to be smaller, which means that at a finite time in the past, the universe would have been compressed to what is essentially nothingness, or for our purposes, we'll refer to this nothingness as the singularity. Some try to describe the singularity as all the matter in the universe condensed to a single point of some indeterminate size. But this isn't true though. To give the singularity size or dimension puts it in the context of space, but space is a relationship between two objects. And the singularity was actually no objects, so the singularity was spaceless. Some try to describe the singularity as existing before the Big Bang, but this isn't true either. Can't put it in the context of time, because time is just relative motion within space. Therefore, the singularity was timeless. And we can't say it was a singularity of matter, because matter is a process, not a consistent reality. We expect the tiniest particles of matter to be dots, but they're actually waves. This means that the singularity was actually a singularity or unification of wave functions, making it too a wave. Waves represent future possibilities rather than physical realities, and possibilities are not physical. Therefore, the singularity was immaterial. This wave basically represented the universe's entire potential future all at once. Strange concept, I know, but in the companion reader to the Encyclopedia on Esoterica, Manly Hall gives us an adequate metaphor. The process by which the entire objective universe is caused to issue forth from the first monadic dot can be likened to that process by which the oak tree emerges from the acorn. It is unreasonable to assume that the oak tree manifests inequalities not originally in its seed, yet that so much should come from so little is apparently a mystery. It is a mystery, but with a lot of thanks to science and no help from scientism, we can decipher this mystery. The accepted timeline for the Big Bang is quantum fluctuations, which led to a phase transition, which led to the expansion of the universe. The first step is quantum fluctuations. And what do we know about quantum events? In a discussion between three different scientists, not these, but three materialist scientists, theoretical physicist and philosopher David Albert had this to say. If you go to the quantum mechanics textbooks, you find quantum mechanics as something that's only well-defined if there's an observer who's doing the measurement, but when we're talking about the early universe, what are we supposed to be talking about? There are no observers. We better find a way to start talking about quantum mechanics. You can hear the dogmatic scientism at the end. We better explain away the observer. 80 years of understanding this basic truth of quantum mechanics, and scientists are still attempting to minimize conscious observation. Except you can't. No one can even try. But scientism is based on dogmatic preservation rather than open inquiry. The dogma is so thick, materialist philosophy of consciousness is full of grown men thinking until they're blue in the face, trying to prove to themselves they're not really conscious. Philosophers thinking they're not conscious. Why is this? Well, later on in this discussion, Dr. Albert says something very telling. If you grew up in a physics education and you became puzzled at the issues of the foundations of quantum mechanics, you were told in very stern language that this could have consequences for your future career. And if you said, okay, so which department should I go to if I want to figure out what the world is actually like, because that's what I thought physicists were doing, this would be diagnosed as a worrisome sign of intellectual immaturity. Scientism is based on the principle that you're too stupid to understand the world around you and within you. This worldview must be dogmatically enforced because science has backed itself into such a tight corner that there's only one logical question we can ask. Could the singularity have been conscious? Well, I think it could have, and I think it must have if the Big Bang Theory is to be believed. Prior to the universe, this singularity was all that existed, and nothing exists independent of the singularity. Therefore, the singularity itself must have been the observer collapsing wave functions in the early universe. It logically follows that the singularity was a disembodied mind. Why? Well, the singularity was timeless, spaceless, and immaterial. And what else do we know that's timeless, spaceless, and immaterial? Our minds. Just think about it next time you meditate or dream or when you're so bored it feels like time is standing still. That aside, there's another very important reason the singularity must have been conscious. The next step in the Big Bang process is a phase transition. A phase transition is a transition from one state of matter to another, but if wave functions aren't material realities, then how could this phase transition have happened? What substance existed that could have changed state? Well, cosmologist Max Tegmark and neuroscientists Christoph Koch and Giulio Tononi have mathematically mapped consciousness as a state of matter. Thanks to the work of these great men, we're getting closer to understanding the nature of reality. But if we dig a bit deeper, I think we'll find that consciousness isn't a state of matter, but that matter is a state of consciousness. Theoretical physicist and scientism fundamentalist Lawrence Krauss gives a surprisingly accurate summary of this concept in this book, A Universe from Nothing. He says, "For surely nothing is every bit as physical as something, especially if it is to be defined as the absence of something." We've already established that the absence of everything is consciousness, but let's define it a bit further. Just think about what a person would be left with if they had none of the 5 basic senses that connect you to the material world. All we're left with is a single metaphysical truth that you're alive or conscious. This spark of consciousness is the same and shared in all of us. It's the illusion of materiality that separates us. And if I'm explaining this well at all, hopefully you'll be able to recognize the separation as an illusion as well. Now, I didn't come up with this, but the message is so powerful that I have to share it with you. This is a chair. What's it for? For sitting on. This is a microphone. What's it for? To amplify voices. And those are speakers. What are they for? Or these drums, what are they for? Or this floor or anything. Anything we can find out what's it for. But now, look at the people around you. What are they for? We know matter that expresses wave-like properties, right? Philosopher Alfred North Whitehead was the first to correctly identify these waves as being mind-like in function. Minds tend to be obsessed with possibilities and tend to naturally be looking towards the future. Minds place themselves in potential realities, then pull their bodies towards one of these realities. Then new wave-like future possibilities open up for the mind to choose from. If we imagine the subatomic world, the wave represents each potential reality for the particle or the body to exist in, but the body doesn't exist in that reality until it establishes purpose, either by interacting with a conscious observer or being part of a conscious system greater than itself. So rather than the mind being the inner world and the body the outer, the mind is the future pole and the body is being pulled from the past. Think about it. Before we all came here tonight, we had plenty of things we could have done instead, but our minds pulled us here. Once our minds collapse a future probability in the present, then a new set of wave-like future possibilities becomes available. Our minds are the pull towards the future and our bodies are the sums of the past. The singularity being a wave like this, it shows obviously this mind-like quality, which would make the universe its body or the sum of all past events. In fact, any system that expresses formative self-regulation like this would possess conscious minds. This includes atoms, plants, animals, humans, planets, stars, or the sun, solar systems, galaxies, etc. Just like stars are the cells in the body of the galaxy, or how an atom looks like a mini solar system, we're all these sort of fractalized, scaled down versions of the universe. This is what the ancient Egyptians meant when they said, as above, so below. What the ancient Greeks meant by the macrocosm and the microcosm. It's the Hermetic principle of correspondence, and this is what the book of Genesis means when it says we're made in God's image and likeness. Thank you.